Hi, this is Brian with ActiveMelody.com. Well, in this week's guitar lesson, we're going to be taking a look at what I'm calling Western swing. It probably sounds the most like Western swing, although there's some jazz in there, there's a little bit of blues or some country, a lot of different influences that go into this style of playing. But what we're going to be focusing on is playing the chord changes, and how do you do that when you improvise? So I'm going to break that down over the course of 2 videos. In this video, we'll take a look at the first half. If you'd like to watch the second half and download the tablature and get the MP3 jam track so that you can practice playing along with this and get your timing down, you can get all of that by going to ActiveMelody.com, go to the weekly lessons page, and do a search for EP287. Alright, so let me just start off this video by talking about this guitar. I know I'll have some questions. Anytime I introduce a new guitar to the lineup, I always get emails about it. And this is a brand new guitar, not just to me, but to the world. As far as I know, I may have the only YouTube video, or the first YouTube video rather, featuring this guitar. Now this is a new one from the company B&G. They're the ones that make the Little Sister. That's that electric guitar that you see me playing on often, that smaller bodied electric with the P90 pickups. They're now playing in the acoustic space. They're starting to make acoustic guitars. And they've just made a handful so far, and they're all private build, at least initially. I'm sure they'll do production lines at some point in the future. But this is the B&G Coletta. That's spelled C-A-L... Actually, it's written in the name block here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but C-A-L-E-T-T-A. And apparently Coletta was the name of Robert Johnson's wife or girlfriend or mistress or something like that. But that's the name of this guitar, and I'm really loving this guitar. They were nice enough to send it to me, and I'm always skeptical about guitars because, you know, sometimes you see some that look cool but they don't sound cool, but this thing sounds incredible. It's got a really big bright sound, and it's incredibly light. So this is made out of, this is solid mahogany. They can do this out of different wood styles. This one happens to be a mahogany. It's very light. It's almost like balsa wood light. It just feels like so simple, so easy you wouldn't know that you even have it. But it's light, bright, and it's got a great intonation as well. So it stays perfectly in tune no matter where you are, up and down the neck. So it's the B&G Coletta. If you're interested in a blues guitar or a little smaller bodied guitar like this, that's bright, has a big sound, easy to play, fun to play around the house, let me know. You can shoot me an email or you know, through the Active Melody website, and I can put you in touch with my contact there. I don't know if they have these even listed on their website yet. I know they will, obviously, sometime soon. But that's what this is. It's the B&G Coletta. I'm loving this little guitar. I think if you got one or if you played on one, you'd be loving it too. All right. So thank you also to B&G. I just want to say thank you. You're nice enough to send me this guitar, and I want to make sure that I plug it and do the right thing. I don't have a relationship with B&G other than just I'm a big admirer of their guitars, and they're nice enough to send them to me and let me check them out. So again, thank you. And I'm very picky about guitars. Okay, so let's go on to this song. Now this song is played in the key of C, and I'm calling this Western swing mainly because I wasn't sure what to call it. It's kind of got a Western swing feel to it. It's got a little bit of a jazz feel to it. It's got a little bit of a blues, a little country. It's a hodgepodge, and so to me, Western swing is that. It's like a stew of all these different styles. And I was influenced by this song, There Will Be Some Changes Made, by Chet Atkins and Mark Knopfler. They did that on the Neck and Neck album, and I've always just been such a fan of that song. I've listened to it a million times, and the improvising and the back and forth between the two of those players, it's some of the best guitar work out there, in my opinion, on this style of playing when it comes to improvising. So I'm trying to do that, and that's what we're doing here. And so there's 2 parts. So what you heard me play, there's no pickup in this guitar, so I'm just playing this right into a microphone. I played 1 track of me just playing the chords, and then the other track is me improvising, or trying to improvise a lead part on top of that. And that's what we're going to be learning in this lesson, not the rhythm part. If you want to play the rhythm part, if you've got a friend and you want to play this with somebody else and perform it somewhere, I've got all of the chords listed in the tablature so you can follow along. They're basic chords. There's 1 G augmented chord, which we'll get to as we go through this lesson. But anyway, let's break this down. So the first thing that we're going to play is over the C chord, and it goes like this. Now that's beautiful to me, and that's very simple to do. It's actually very easy to to improvise in that style. Now that may sound complicated to hear a harmony like that when you're improvising, but when you see what I'm going to show you here, you'll see that it's pretty easy. So this will be your first takeaway, a little tip that I'm going to show you. It's not a trick, I don't like using that word. It's just a tip on how to use this C chord shape that we all know how to play down in first position, but we're going to play strings 2 and 4, and we're going to use hybrid picking. Now to do this, you're going to have to hybrid pick. It's not hard. You're just going to use your pick on the 4th string, and you're going to use your ring finger on the 2nd string at the same time. If you're a finger picker, don't worry about it. Just use your fingers. But that's how I'm doing it. And so there's 2 shapes that you're going to need to know. Shape 1, which looks like that. That's your C chord. And then shape 2, which looks like that. Now that's where 2 fingers are crammed into the same fret. So in this case, we're on the 3rd fret strings. We're on those same 2 strings, strings 2 and 4. So we have shape 1, shape 2, shape 2, shape 1, shape 1. Look at that. Now I'm just walking up the major scale, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, for C. And you can see I'm just using those same 2 shapes to do that. Now, if you're ever playing something in the key of C, and you're wanting to improvise, you can quickly come in and start to use those harmonies. And look at how that works. It's just right out of that major scale again. Okay, so that's where this is coming from, this first part. And it starts with... So to do that, I'm going to start by taking shape 2 that I showed you. I'm going to slide, I'm going to pick the 4th string, I'm going to slide from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret, and then my ring finger is going to pluck the 2nd string on the 5th fret there. Those are the first 2 notes. Okay, now we're going to go back to shape 1, but look at how I'm doing that. So I use these 2 fingers for shape 2, and these 2 fingers for shape 1. So my middle finger always stays down. Look at that when I go between the 2. That's important. You don't want to try and switch your fingers. You'll screw it up every time. But if you just leave that middle finger down, and basically you're just lifting either your ring finger or your index finger, depending on which one you need to put down. Okay, so there's the first part. Now when I came up here, my middle finger came up to the 7th fret, and my index finger is on the 6th fret. We go back to shape 1. So we go back to shape 2, that first thing we started with. Then we go down to the 3rd fret. We come back to where we started, to the 5th fret. Back to the 3rd fret. And those are slides there between those 2. Let me do it. Hear those slides? And then we come down to this position, which would be your C chord. Just strings 2 and 4 out of the C chord. Okay, so that's that intro, and you can see now where it comes from. It's easy to use, and here's how it sounds. Now after that I went and came up and hit that. Now that's a little C major 7 chord. It gives it that kind of jazzy sound and feel. Now some of you are going to say, now what's a major 7 chord? And the easiest way to describe it is not getting into theory, but just the feel of it. If I just go off what it feels like a jazzy chord. So if I were to play a C chord sounds like that, right? This is sort of generic, I guess, in a way. But if I played a C major 7 chord, same chord, but now we're doing a major 7. See how it has a different pull? There's actually a minor chord embedded in that, and it gives it a different feel. And so when I came up here and went, I'm playing a C major 7 chord. I'm just sliding into it now, just using 3 fingers. But here's the takeaway. This is how I want you to think about this chord shape, because we're actually going to revisit this quite a bit in this lead part. And this is what gives it that Western swing feel, is using a C major 7 arpeggio. Anytime you can introduce that into your playing over the correct chord change, it's going to totally give you that feel. However you can describe that, Western swing, jazz, however you want to say it. But here's the easy way to think about it, is to think about your major bar chord. That's where we just bar. Now I'm playing a C major bar chord. These 3 fingers are playing the E chord shape. So if I look at that and think of my 8th fret as the my 8th fret as the root fret for C, If I were to go down just 1 fret from there, that would be the 7th fret. Now watch this, I'm going to stair step. Look at that, each one goes up a string like that. That would be my C major 7 chord. That's one way to play the C major 7 chord. But it's easy for me to, the reason I'm showing you that is I can always visualize this chord shape, and I know that I can just go right behind it to play the notes out of the C major 7 chord. That way I can start to use those when I play arpeggios and things, and it gives you a whole different feel. So that's why that's why that worked. I was able to quickly grab that when improvising that because I could see this C chord and I knew the major 7 is right behind it. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, from the beginning we have then I came up here and went, and that's the same thing. All of that's the same, and we resolve this time here on the 3rd fret, strings 2 and 3, and that's where the song switches to the 5 chord or the G chord. And then after that I played a little fill lick that goes. Now I'm just thinking about, since the song's over a G, I just went in my head, I thought, okay, where's some G stuff I can play? I went into G major pentatonic scale pattern 1. It's sort of a home base for me, so G is here. There's your G minor pentatonic scale, but we want to go major. We don't want to go into the blues yet. So to do major, we're just going to take that minor, slide it down 3 frets like I've talked about before. So your nut, it would be, you know, where that first position would be. So now it looks like that. So when I played that, I went, and that's why those notes work. So that's the 2nd fret, 3rd string, the open 2nd string, and then a quick slide from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret on the 3rd string, and then your open string again, and then a hammer-on. That hammer-on happens on the 4th string, so it's the open 4th string, hammer-on to the 2nd fret, and then the open 3rd string. Now you can see I was just using my middle finger for all of that on the left hand. That's just a lick. Think of that as a G lick. So I want you to always take these little licks and pull them out and let each lick be a mini lesson in and of itself. So let's take that lick and play it over a G chord just so that we can start to use it in other things. Look at that. It fits nicely. You can change the cadence of it however you want, but that's how you want to think about all of these little components. Okay, let's back it up from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, we're going to do that. We're going to take, after we do that hammer on there to the open string, I'm going to take my middle finger, 2nd fret, 4th string, and slide it all the way up here to the 7th fret, and then put my index finger down on the 2nd string 6th fret. Sorry. Now those two notes are in the middle of your D minor chord. So now is where the song switches. It plays a D minor, plays an A7, and back to your D minor. And so that's what we're going to be playing over here. So I'm just playing 2 notes out of that D minor chord. In fact, if I were to make the chord and played strings 4 and 2, they're going to come right out of that. So I can use that same theory then. If I'm going to switch to the A7 chord right here, I can play strings 4 and 2. And then go back. So look at that. Now the good news is I don't have to make that full chord. I can just think of those shapes that I showed you in the beginning. Shape 1 and 2. So there's your shape 1. There's your shape 2. And so that's how you want to think about this. So when I go to shape 2, that's the 2nd and 4th string on the 5th fret. And that really is where I ended the harmony part. It was right there. And then we go into single string stuff after that. So that's what we're going to do now. So after we played that, and by the way, just remember those 2 notes are actually the two notes in the A7 chord. There's your A7 chord. If I played strings 2 and 4, that's why they work. Okay. So then the song goes back to the D minor chord, and I played 3rd fret 2nd string, 5th fret 2nd string, and then we come up to the 6th fret 2nd string. Okay, that's pretty easy to do. Now watch this. That's a hammer on, pull off, hammer on. And I keep my index finger there on the 5th fret 2nd string. I do a hammer on to the 6th fret 2nd string. Hammer on goes back down on the 7th fret 3rd string. And then we're going to walk right down the major scale for G. So we're going to go. So after we hit that note, we're going to go to the 5th fret 3rd string, 4th fret 3rd string, 7th fret 4th string, 5th fret 4th string. Now those notes, they're just the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. They're just the major scale for G. Now this is for G. I said that fast. This is why it's so important for you to know your major scale in different spots all over the neck. At least start with one place and then kind of branch out from there so that you can always go to that major scale. So I knew the song went like this from the D minor to the A, back to the D minor, and then it goes to the G. And then it goes to that G augmented, and then back to the C. So that's what you should have up to this point. Now this is where the song, like I said, it goes from the G to that G augmented. So I went. Now let me show you that. This is super easy to play. This is just going back and forth between the 5th fret and the 7th fret. So we have the 4th string, 5th fret, 7th fret, and then we play the, I use my index finger, I do a little stretch here between my ring finger and index finger. Then I play the 4th fret 3rd string, and then I go back to the 5th fret, back to the 7th fret, that's both on the 3rd string. So let's take it from this 5th fret 4th string. We have, and then I put my index finger again on the 4th fret, this time on the 2nd string. And then I come back up to the 5th fret 2nd string, and that's where the song goes back to the C chord. You can hear it kind of resolve there. In fact, I like to let those strings ring out like this. Right there, is kind of let them ring out. It gives it kind of you hear that in a lot of Western swing stuff. As opposed to making a real clean break for each note. And the reason this note works is that's in that G augmented chord. Here's how you make that chord, by the way. Just go ahead and bar the first 3 strings on the 4th fret. Put your ring finger on the 5th fret 1st string. And then put your middle finger on the 5th fret 4th string. And just play a 4, 3, 2, and 1. That's one way to make a G augmented. Another is like that. But that's a really good transition chord, and you hear that in a lot of Western swing where you're about to go back to the 1 chord, but it's a nice transition to get you from the 5 chord. You play the augmented chord, and then you go back to the 1. So just remember that if you're wanting a creative way to go from the 5 chord to the 1 chord, and that you could do that over blues. It doesn't have to just be this style of music. It can work over anything. That's how you do it. Now the way that you want to think about this chord is off of this chord shape. So if I were to quiz you right now and I told you to play A as the 5 chord, play the A chord, the A augmented chord, and then back to the 1 chord, you can pause the video and try and work that out. You should be able to do that on your own. But here's what it would look like. You have your A, you have your A augmented, and then you go back to the 1 chord, which is your D. So just remember that. All right, so that's a lot of information. Let's back up from the beginning and play up to that point. We have. Alright, now once we get to that 5th fret 2nd string, I just did that to reiterate because we're holding out the note over that the chord. So it's a 5th fret 2nd string, and then I came up here to the 8th fret 2nd string and back to the 5th fret 2nd string. Now, so you can kind of picture something here. If you're feeling totally lost, like where am I? The song now went back to the 1 chord, which is your C chord. And what I like to do is always have a home base if I'm improvising and trying to play chord changes. You have to have something that you can go back to, not if you get lost, when you get lost, because everybody gets lost. It's impossible for your brain to always know where you're at, I think. So what I like to do when I'm playing in the key of C is I think of C major pentatonic scale pattern 1. That's right there. That's that same shape as the minor pentatonic scale for C. You just move it down 3 frets like I mentioned earlier. So if you know your minor pentatonic scale, move it down 3 frets and you've got your home base. So any of those notes are actually pretty much going to work. So if you ever do get lost and you can't figure out what to do in the chord changes, just go back into that box. And you can go into the minor pentatonic up here if you want as well to give it more of a bluesy feel. So play around with that. Put on that jam track and just try playing some notes out of the major pentatonic scale. Just see what you can come up with. It's all going to start to click once you can start to feel it. You have to be able to feel through your fingers though, not just your mind, but you got to be able to translate what's in here to here. And that's learning. So that's what we're trying to do. All right, so the next lick that I played goes. Now that should sound familiar because we're staying in that major pentatonic scale. So I'm now coming up to the 8th fret 1st string and I'm hitting that 3 times. And then I come down to the 7th fret 1st string. Some of you are going to say, wait, that's not in the major pentatonic scale. And it's not, but it is in the major scale. So the only difference between the major pentatonic scale and the major scale is there's 2 notes extra. Penta means 5, pentatonic. But the major scale has 7. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And then do repeats itself. So this is one of those extra notes, and that's why. So the 7th fret 1st string. So that's how I played it. 1, 2, 3. That's a hammer-on pull-off, and then a slide. So I actually only picked that once. And you hear that a lot in this style of music. So that's a great little technique to learn, is just to stay on 1 string. It makes it easier in some ways. And just kind of work your way down a string. It's that technique of hammer on, pull off, slide, hammer on, pull off, slide. So you might try playing scales that way. And you can go across strings, and that's what we do. So I came down to the 8th fret 2nd string, and then while that note's ringing out, my middle finger goes down to the 8th fret 3rd string, and I do a quick slide into the 7th fret there. And you can see those notes are in that major pentatonic scale. And then I come down to the 5th fret 3rd string, and I slide up to position 2. So this would be pattern 1. This is pattern 2. So I'm going to slide from the 7th fret to the 9th fret on the 3rd string, and then my index finger goes down on the 8th fret 2nd string. And those notes, they harmonize. Do you hear that? Look at that. They harmonize within the C. Just remember how we had those 2 shapes that were they kind of look like that, but they were across strings, so we were on the 2nd string and the 4th string. Now there are strings that are side by side like that, but they also harmonize, and so that's a harmonized 3rd. These are harmonized 6th. There's 6 intervals apart on the major scale. These are harmonized 3rds. There are only 3 intervals apart. You have the root, the 2nd, and then the 3rd. And we're just playing the root and the 3rd. Okay, so let's take it from. Okay, now after that, just so you know where the song is at, we're back at the C. Now the song is going to go to a C7 chord, and then we're going to go to the 4 chord, which is an F. And what I'm playing over that C7 as I go, that's just a very basic blues lick. But it worked really nicely, and I thought this would be a good one. I'll play it a couple of times just to reiterate it. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide from the 7th fret to the 8th fret, strings 1 and 2. We're going to play strings 2 and 3 now on the 10th fret. And by the way, where my mind is, minor pentatonic scale, pattern 1. I'm thinking blues now. We're going to get a little bluesier. And so that's why that sounds that way. All right, so we got that, and then we're going to come down, back down to the 8th fret. We're going to play strings 2 and 3 with a hammer on to the 9th fret, 3rd string. And then my ring finger goes down on the 10th fret, 4th string. So that's an awesome little takeaway lick. If you're not familiar with that, you can use that in any blues. Now you can see all I'm doing is I'm building that C chord. There's the chord. So that should register with you if you want to use that lick in G, if you're playing blues in G. It would be a great lick to add to your repertoire. Okay. Then I came up here to this note, and this is where the song goes to the F. And we're going to switch to the F scale now, F major scale, major pentatonic scale. So that's the 10th fret, 2nd string. My middle finger goes down on the 9th fret, 3rd string, and then the 7th fret, 3rd string. Okay, let's back up and play everything up to that point, and then we got one more little phrase in this first video, and then we'll move on to the second video and learn the rest of this. It's quite a composition. All right, so from the beginning, we have Alright, so now the chord goes to an F minor. It goes from the F major to the F minor. Remember that when you're writing songs, if you want a cool transition, you go from the whatever your 4 chord is, to the minor version of that chord. So then I played. So let's learn that. So remember, we've got your F, and all I'm doing, I was thinking about the F triad up here. This is out of that caged system. So I'm gonna play the 8th fret 1st string, and then that is the 2nd and 3rd string on the 10th fret. I'm just tracing the notes out of that chord. And then I came down to the 9th fret 3rd string. And then watch this. That's easy because they're played all in a row there. So I'm playing 7, 8, and 9 on the 3rd string. And then I'm going to play 8, 9, 10 on the 2nd string. Pretty easy to play. And then I'm going to come up to the 12th fret 2nd string and hit that and come down here to the 10th fret 2nd string. So all together. Now this should be your takeaway, is to think about what gives it that different feel. Instead of just playing major pentatonic scale, it's filling in the gaps in between those spaces. That is what a lot of Western swing is to me. So instead of playing, I could go. Look at that. All I did was played, but I colored in between the lines a little bit and added some of those passing notes, as opposed to going, just playing right on those the notes that we know. It's playing those extra notes. And so to me, that's why that has that feel. All right, so now we have one more little part. We're going to come down here and play. Let me show you that. So we're going to start here on the 5th fret 2nd string, and then 7th fret 3rd string, go down to the 5th fret 3rd string, and then back to the 5th fret 2nd string, back to the 7th fret 3rd string, back to the 5th fret. Look at that, it's 3 blind mice. Right? And what those notes are, they're just major pentatonic scale, pattern 1 for C. Now the only difference is I slid into that first one, and that's another technique if you want to give it a little more of a jazzy feel. Instead of playing straight on the note, making it sound robotic, you can slide into some of those notes just from one half step, or just one fret below where you need to be. You can slide in. So that's gives it that feel. 7th fret, 3rd string, and then I came down to the 4th fret, 3rd string. So let's back up. From the beginning of that we have, and then I played the 5th fret, 1st string, and I slid down and resolved there on the 4th fret, 2nd string. Now that is the one unsettling sounding note, and it's because it fits right into that G augmented chord. Remember I was explained that earlier. You've got your 5 chord, and we're trying to get back to the 1 chord, but a great transition to get us there is that augmented chord. So that note always works. Now remember, this is another takeaway. When you're playing lead and you want to have that feel, that augmented feel, you now know how to get there based on pattern 1 of your major pentatonic scale. So think about C. There's your C major pentatonic scale. If you're down at this note in this position, so that'd be on the 2nd string, you just go down 1 fret below that and resolve it right there. And your ear will tell you. In fact, if you play along with a jam track, every time you hear that augmented chord, work that note in. And you can play it in different spots in the neck, but you'll see how it kind of, once you don't have to do it that many times to start to understand how it works. And then once you get that note and can work it into your vocabulary, it can really enhance your playing and make you sound a lot more advanced. All right, so that's a lot of information. I'm going to end this part 1 video here. I'm winded. And let me back up now, and we'll go through all of this first half, and then I'll see you in part 2. And if you're not a premium member, make sure you check that out, because it's incredibly affordable. Even for this lesson alone, it's totally worth it, I think. You get all the backing track and the tablature and everything. All right, so here we go. From the beginning.